We've all heard, take a walk, it's good for your mental health. But have we stopped to think about if it matters where we walk, where we hike? Does the different terrain, the environment, how does that have different impacts on our mental health? So from different sources, I was recommended an article from Backpacking Light called Topographical Intervention. It was written by a man by the name of Ryan Jordan, who's an engineer, I believe. And his premise is that we talk about taking a walk for mental health, but that often fails because we don't consider some other factors. In particular, we don't factor in the terrain and the topography and how that has a significant impact as well on that. And he will go on to describe how different terrain is more suitable for different mental states that we're in. In the article, Jordan gives 4 scenarios to illustrate his point. The first scenario is that of anxiety. So you're struggling with anxiety, his recommendation is going to be you find a steep place to hike, something strenuous, something where you're using the large major muscle groups. The theory there is that helps process cortisol, something that's released in stressful situations, and get you back to a less anxious state. His second scenario is one of grief. So very different here. In grief, the prescription is for a quiet forest. Something that doesn't have any abrupt changes in it. Something soothing. And not falling like that. The third scenario is that of indecisiveness. So in that scenario, he's going to recommend that you find some place where there's a lot of turns on the trails, a lot of choices to be made. And by having to focus and make decisions while walking and hiking, you're training yourself to make decisions in general. And then lastly, the fourth scenario is when you're dealing with burnout. It's more like the grief scenario. You're going to pick some place that is fairly regular, linear in travel, and ideally something with water features around it. So the babbling stream or babbling brook, something that's soothing and helps you to kind of decompress. So I found this intriguing, this idea that I can change or impact my mental state just by the topography and the terrain and where I choose to hike. And so I started looking into the article more. Unfortunately, there aren't really any references or background that went with the article itself. So I started looking into that and searching for more of that. And so I was kind of disappointed because there hasn't been a ton of research in that specific area. So for the 4 scenarios that he described in the article, I did find some references for 2 of the areas. So one, dealing with grief. And so there is quite a bit that's written about what some people refer to as forest bathing, this idea of just soaking into your environment in a forest. And so that was pretty cool. And then there was some other research that dealt with burnout and the idea that a linear rhythmic topography, especially with streams, can be very good for us to unwind and relax and feel less overwhelmed. But for some of the other scenarios and for just emotional states in general, there really wasn't that kind of data out there. And so I'm still looking into that. If you know of anything, I would love to hear about it. But what research does show is that emotionally and physiologically, we're pretty complex creatures. And so there's often more to it than what's at the surface, or more than just one factor in terms of topography and environment. And so think about it. I mean, there's all sorts of things, weather, who we're with, all these things come into play with how we react to hikes and things of that nature. So like, take weather, for instance. I don't mind hiking in the rain. In fact, I kind of like it. In some ways, it kind of closes everything else off. Other folks, if it even looks like rain, they switch into a miserable gear. And it is not their thing, right? And some of you might be laughing because you're either that person or you know people like that. And then there are things like, who am I hiking with? If I'm with a couple close friends, that can be pretty special, especially if there's things that I want to talk through or work through, or just know in a sense that I'm safe because I'm with people that I know and trust, and they know and trust and care about me. Whereas if I'm out with like a hiking club and there's 25, 30 people, that might be very different. Might not be the same sort of feel that you were looking for. And then there's, what am I doing in the hike? I know some people, the hike is really about just getting somewhere or getting somewhere and back. Whereas for other people, it's about bird watching or turning over rocks to look for salamanders. All sorts of things like that, which depending on the terrain, that may not lend itself to those things they love and enjoy and that recharge them. A factor might be how familiar are you with the location, the hike, the path. You know, there's something fun about hiking someplace you've never been before, seeing what's there, kind of exploring the wonder of that. At the same time, there's places I go a lot, and part of that is it brings back memories, cool things that I discovered or saw along the way. And that brings back good feelings, recharges me. So that's yet another factor in all of this. So if you're wondering where I am, I'm in the Cascade Valley State Forest here in eastern Broome County, you know, very, very eastern. State Forest, I think over 500 acres, purchased back in the 1930s. Not really maintained trails. There's something they call like a multi-purpose trail, but you kind of see it and then you don't see it, then you see it again kind of thing. But pretty here. There's some good elevation that rises up, some nice rock formations, and then at the very top of the one edge, you can look over into land that was quarried. That's kind of a cool view. We'll see that. So I'm going up a steep section here, so maybe I should be dealing with anxiety. But instead, I want to talk to you a little bit about depression. Every now and then, I get depressed. I mean, the kind of depression where I don't want to get out of bed. I'd be fine staying in bed all day long. Now, that's rare, but it happens. And so one of those times it happened was shortly after reading this article. And so now my head's spinning with, all right, I should get up, I should go for a hike, but where? Where can I hike that's good for this depression I'm struggling with? And I got sidetracked. Trying to think through that distracted me from just actually getting out and hiking. And so I want to caution us about not letting perfect be the enemy of good. Don't overthink this. There's so many factors involved. It's worth thinking about. Just don't overthink it. So I'm in a section now where we get these beautiful rock formations, but it's awful steep here as well. So I won't be walking and talking. So I've been journaling for a while. My different hikes, just writing down what animals, plants that are interesting that I see along the way. Little things like that. But I think I'm going to also add in there some things about, well, how did I feel when I started the hike? How did I feel when I end? and then looking at the topography and everything, see if there's any trends, at least for myself. So I'm curious about you. Are there types of hikes that you go on or walks that you take for specific scenarios of how you're feeling and how you want to feel? I'd love to hear about that. Drop a comment below or drop me an email. I also want to thank those of you that have been commenting. I also had one viewer who just sent me an email, filled me in on some stuff, and that was awesome. I appreciate that. The contact information is on the website. So I'm feeling good right now. This has been kind of a tough hike at spots and just been on a maintained trail. I've been stumbling a lot, so there's a lot of blooper footage perhaps out there. But I hope you're in a good state. And if not, I hope you find a good hike to get you in the best state ever. So have a great day, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye now.